Most middle-class Indian families are not poor because they did not work hard enough. They are poor because they followed every rule they were given, and nobody told them the rules were designed for someone else. Your parents told you to study hard. You did. They told you to get a stable job. You did. They told you to save money in a bank, buy insurance, help the family with expenses, do not take risks, do not talk about money at the dinner table. You did all of it. And somehow, at the end of every month, the number in your account is almost exactly what it was at the start. Maybe a little more. Never enough to actually feel like progress. That is not a coincidence. That is a pattern. And once you see the 7 ways this pattern was built into you, built into most of us actually, you cannot unsee it. By the end of this video, you will know exactly which of these 7 you are carrying right now, and you will know the one place each of them is most expensive. My name is Rohan, and I have spent the last several years obsessively mapping every money belief I grew up with back to where it actually came from, who it serves and who it hurts. If you are someone who does everything right and still cannot seem to pull ahead financially, hit subscribe and thumbs up if this helps. Way number 1. You were taught that talking about money is rude. Think about how you grew up. Could you ask your father what his salary was? Could you ask your mousie what her savings look like? Could you tell a friend you cannot afford something without feeling ashamed? Almost certainly not. There's a specific Indian silence around money. It is not neutral, it is trained. You learn somewhere between ages 8 and 15 that money talk is either bragging or begging, and neither is acceptable. So you go quiet, and that quiet follows you into every salary conversation, every negotiation, every moment where you could have asked for more and did not. Here's the thing. That silence has a direct price you can calculate. Dinesh works in an IT company in Pune. He's been there 4 years. He recently found out completely by accident that his colleague who joined the same year is earning 3.4 lakh rupees more per annum than him. Same role, similar experience, different salary. How? The colleague negotiated. Dinesh never did, because nobody in his family ever talked about what you're actually worth in the market. His family talked about loyalty, about being grateful for having a job, about not being greedy. That silence is costing Dinesh 28,000 rupees every single month. Oh man, that is not small money. That is one SIP, one family vacation, 1 month's school fee sitting permanently on the table because of a social rule nobody ever stopped to question. The families that build wealth talk about money openly, not to show off, to plan, to negotiate, to compare. The silence was never really about dignity. It was about discomfort, and discomfort is something you can choose to push through. Way number 2. You were taught that stability is the highest goal. Write this down. Stability is not the same as safety. They feel identical. They are completely different things. A savings account is stable. You can see the exact number. It does not move. It does not scare you. And according to the latest available rates at leading scheduled commercial banks, it earns you somewhere between 2.5 and 3.5% per annum. Now, the RBI Monetary Policy Report shows India's average CPI inflation has been running at 5 to 6% per annum over recent years. So your stable savings account is in real terms shrinking quietly every single year. The number in the account goes up by 3%. The price of everything around you goes up by 5 to 6%. You are moving backwards while sitting completely still. That is not safety. That is a slow leak. Think about it like this. You have an overhead water tank on your building's terrace. When the tank is full, nobody checks it. Nobody thinks about it. The water just comes when you turn the tap. But there's a tiny crack in the side. Not a burst, just a slow seep. Day by day, week by week, the water level drops. You only notice when one Tuesday morning the tap runs dry. Your money in a savings account is that tank. Inflation is the crack, and the stability you see on your net banking screen every month is hiding a very real and very quiet loss. The most recent RBI annual report for 2024-25 shows that net household financial savings in India stood at 5.1% of gross national disposable income in 2023-24, recovering from the record low of 5.9% the year before. Most of that savings is sitting in instruments that cannot beat inflation over time. Stability felt like the safe choice because it was the certain choice, but certainty is not the same as protection. Way number 3. You were taught that gold is savings. I'm going to be careful here because gold in India is not only a financial decision, it's emotional, it's tradition. Savitri Tai from the building has been buying gold jewelry every Akshaya Tritiya for 30 years because her mother did and her mother's mother did. That is real, that matters. But you should know the actual numbers before you decide how much of your savings go there. When you buy gold jewelry, somewhere between 12 to 25% of what you pay immediately disappears as making charges. That money is gone the second you walk out of the shop. When you sell that gold back, you almost never get making charges returned. You're selling raw metal weight, not the piece you bought. This is exactly where people get fooled the most. Gold feels like savings because it's physical. You can see it, you can touch it, you can lock it in a cupboard and feel it sitting there. An equity fund is a number on a screen that moves up and down. The brain treats the physical thing as safe and the screen number as risk, even when the historical math says very different things. The NSE Nifty 50 index over rolling 20 to 30-year periods has historically averaged around 12% per annum, according to NSE Index fact sheet data. Some families keep gold because it cannot be easily attached in legal proceedings. Some keep it as insurance against a daughter's wedding expenses. These are valid reasons that have nothing to do with pure return calculations. But if someone told you gold is where you put money to grow it, they gave you the wrong instruction. Way number 4. You were taught that debt is shameful. There's a cousin at every Indian wedding who has taken a loan and the whole table talks about it in hushed voices like he's done something immoral. There's a respectability around being debt-free that goes much deeper than finance. It's a moral position. And this is where the shame gets expensive. There's good debt, the kind that earns you more than it costs. A business loan at 12% that returns 25% is good debt. An education loan that moves a salary band by $1 lakh per year is good debt. A home loan, depending on the rate, your rental situation, the city, can be good debt or neutral or bad debt. It's not automatically any of those things. It requires thinking, not morality. And here's the part nobody tells you. The shame around debt often means people reach into emergency savings to avoid taking a loan because a loan would be visible and embarrassing. Or they take high interest informal borrowing from a relative instead of a proper low-interest bank loan because the bank loan means acknowledging the need in writing to strangers. They end up paying more money in silence just to avoid a conversation. That's the real cost, not the loan, the shame of the loan. But wait, I need to stop here for a second because there's something I realized halfway through making this video that changes how you think about all 4 of these patterns together. The first 4 ways, the silence, the stability trap, the gold belief, the debt shame, these are not random. They are not 4 separate mistakes. They are the same mistake in 4 clothes. They are all versions of the same instruction. Keep your money visible, physical, certain, and safe. Do not put it somewhere you cannot see it. Do not take a risk you cannot explain to your mother. That instruction made sense for a generation that had experienced partition, famines, bank collapses, and extreme economic instability. For them, the tangible and certain was genuinely safer than the abstract and uncertain. They built that belief from real history. But you are not in that history. You are in an India with SEBI regulation, deposit insurance, digital brokerages, and an economy that has been growing for 30 years. The instruction they gave you was built for their world. You are trying to use it in a completely different one. Type family if someone in your house has ever talked you out of investing or talked you into keeping money safe when you should have put it to work.
Way number 5. You were taught that investing is for rich people. Meenakshi works at a hospital in Coimbatore. She earns 22,000 rupees a month. Her friend Bhavna, same age, same neighborhood, started an SIP 2 years ago with 1,500 rupees a month. Meenakshi did not because the mental image of investing in her head and probably in yours too at some point is a man in a suit in a glass office with crores to deploy. Bhavna put 1,500 rupees every month for 24 months. That is 36,000 rupees of her own money. Historically, the Indian equity mutual fund category has averaged around 12% per annum over long periods, according to AMFI and NSE data. At that historical rate, Bhavna's corpus would be around 40,500 rupees after those 2 years. That is the historical math, not a guarantee of future returns. Small number, not life-changing yet, but Bhavna is not doing this for 2 years. She's doing it for 22 years. And that gap between 36,000 rupees invested and the historically compounded result after 2 decades is what nobody explained to Meenakshi. It is not dramatic in year 2. It is dramatic in year 12. According to the SEBI chairperson in November 2025, India now has 13.6 crore investors holding more than 21 crore demat accounts. In 2019, the total was around 3.6 crores. 5 crore to 21 crore in 6 years. Every one of those new accounts belongs to someone who was also told this was not for people like them. And then they started anyway with 500 rupees or 1000 rupees or whatever they could manage. The habit is what compounds, not the amount. Way number 6. You were taught that family expenses come before personal financial planning. This one is the most painful to say because the families that taught you this were not being cruel. They were being honest about how survival works in India. When the whole building floods, you do not check your SIP returns. You think about whether your parents have somewhere to sleep. But at some point, family first stops being an emergency response and becomes a permanent structure that nobody ever consciously designed. Arjun sends money home every month. His mother expects it. His younger brother's college fees, his sister's wedding fund, the house repairs, the medical bills, all of it routes through him. And Arjun tells himself he will start investing when things settle down. That sentence, when things settle down. Things do not settle down. That is not how Indian family financial structures work. A new need is always forming behind the current one. Every year that Arjun does not invest is a year compound growth is not working for him. The settlement point keeps moving 12 months ahead of wherever he's standing. Look, if your salary is 18,000 rupees and you're sending 12,000 rupees home, you are not in a position to invest aggressively. That's a real income constraint, not a mindset problem. But somewhere in those remaining 6,000 rupees, 500 rupees is often possible. Many people start there just to prove to themselves that they can prioritize their own financial future. Then it becomes 1,000 rupees, then 3,000 rupees. Not because a windfall came, because they practiced the priority long enough that it became the habit. Way number 7. You were taught that the stock market is gambling. This is the one that possibly costs the most because of how long it keeps people out. Here's how Farhan's family talked about the market. His chacha lost money in 2008, his neighbor lost money in 2000. The market crashed, the market burned. It is for gamblers and for people with inside information. Better to keep it in an FD, safe, guaranteed, government-backed. FD interest from leading scheduled commercial banks currently runs at roughly 6.5 to 7.5% per annum. Against 5 to 6% inflation, that's a real return of perhaps 1 to 2%. Not nothing, but not wealth that multiplies. Here's the flip. Every person who put money into a diversified index fund, not a single stock, not a hot tip from a WhatsApp group, an index fund that simply holds the whole market and held it through every crash for 15 or 20 years in India, has historically come out significantly ahead. Not because they were smart, not because they had information, because the Indian economy grew and the companies in the index grew with it. Gambling is when the house has a permanent edge and your odds cannot improve no matter how long you play. A diversified equity index fund held over 15 to 20 years has historically worked in favor of patient investors according to NSE Nifty 50 rolling return data. The historical average over those long periods has been around 12% per annum. Farhan's chacha who lost money in 2008, did he stay in? If he stayed and held, the market recovered and he was ahead within a few years. If he sold in panic when the numbers turned red, the market came back and he did not. The loss was not the crash, the loss was the exit. The risk of being in the stock market is short-term volatility. That's real and it is uncomfortable to live through. The risk of never entering is guaranteed slow erosion, the inflation crack in the water tank that you never feel until it is too late. And here's the part that breaks most people. Even after understanding all 7 of these patterns, there is one silent cost eating your money every single month that runs through every single one of them at the same time. I broke it down fully in the video right here about the 3 net worth levels where life starts feeling different. Watch that next.